Morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday, January 21st, 2019. Per my schedule, I have a day off work today, so today we are going to be reading Chapter 1 of Vision and White by Nora Roberts. Ready? Here we go. On January 1st, Mac rolled over to smack her alarm clock and ended up face down on the floor of her studio. Shit! Happy New Year! She lay groggy and baffled until she remembered she'd never made it upstairs into bed, and the alarm was from her computer, set to wake her at noon. She pushed herself up to stagger to the kitchen and the coffee maker. Why did people want to get married on New Year's Eve? Why would they make a formal ritual out of a holiday designed for marathon drinking and probably inappropriate sex? And they just had to drag family and friends into it, not to mention wedding photographers. Of course, when the reception had finally ended at 2 a.m., she could have gone to bed like a sane person instead of uploading the shots, reviewing them, spending nearly 3 more hours on the Haynes-Myers wedding photos. But boy, she'd gotten some good ones. A few great ones. Oh, they were all crap, and she'd judged them in a euphoric blur. No, they were good shots. She added 3 spoons of sugar to the black coffee and drank it while standing at the window, looking out at the snow blanketing the gardens and lawns of the Brown estate. They'd done a good job on the wedding, she thought, and maybe Bob Haynes and Vicky Myers would take a clue from that and do a good job on their marriage. Either way, the memories of that day wouldn't fade. The moments, big and small, were captured. She'd refine them, finesse them, print them. Bob and Vicky could revisit the day through those images next week, or 60 years from next week. That, she thought, was as poignant as sweet black coffee on a cold winter day. Opening a cupboard, she pulled out a box of Pop-Tarts, and eating one where she stood, went over her schedule for the day. Clay McPherson, Rod, and Allison. Wedding at 6, which meant the bride and her party would arrive by 3, groom and his by 4. That gave her until 2 for the pre-event summit meeting at the main house, time enough to shower, dress, go over her notes, check and recheck her equipment. Her last check of the day's weather called for sunny skies, high of 32. She should be able to get some nice preparation shots using natural light and maybe talk Allison, if she was game, into a bridal portrait on the balcony with the snow in the background. Mother of the bride, Mac remembered, Dorothy, call me Dottie, was on the pushy and demanding side, but she'd be dealt with. If Mac couldn't handle her personally, God knew Parker would. Parker could and did handle anyone and anything. Parker's drive and determination had turned Vows into one of the top wedding and event planning companies in the state in a 5-year period. It had turned the tragedy of her parents' deaths into hope, and the gorgeous Victorian home on the stunning grounds of the Brown estate into a thriving and unique business. And Mac thought, as she swallowed the last of the Pop-Tart, she herself was one of the reasons. She moved through the studio toward the stairs to her upstairs bed and bath, stopped at one of her favorite photos, the glowing, eccentric bride with her face lifted and arms stretched, palms up, caught in a shower of pink rose petals. Cover of today's bride, Mac thought, because I'm just that good. In her thick socks, flannel pants, and sweatshirt, she climbed the stairs to transform herself from tired PJ-clad Pop-Tart addict into sophisticated wedding photojournalist. She ignored her unmade bed. Why make it when you were just going to mess it up again? And the bedroom clutter, the hot shower, worked with the sugar and caffeine to clear out any remaining cobwebs so she could put her mind seriously to today's job. She had a bride who was interested in trying the creative and passive-aggressive MOB, who thought she knew best, a groom so dazzling in love he'd do anything to make his bride happy, and both her B and G were seriously photogenic. The last fact made the job both pleasure and challenge. Just how could she give her clients a photo journey of their day that was spectacular and uniquely theirs? Bride's colors, she thought, flipping through her mental files as she washed her short, shaggy crop of red hair, silver and gold, elegant, glamorous. She'd had a look at the flowers and the cake, both getting their finishing touches today. The flowers and linens, attendants' wardrobes, headdresses. She had a copy of the playlist from the band, with the first dance, mother-son, father-daughter dances highlighted. So she thought for the next several hours, her world would revolve around Rod and Allison. She chose her suit, her jewelry, her makeup, with nearly the same care as she chose her equipment. Loaded, she went out to make the short trek from the pool house that held her studio and little apartment to the main house. The snow sparkled, crushed diamonds over emerine, and the air was cold and clean as mountain ice. She definitely had to get some outside shots, daylight and evening. Winter wedding, white wedding snow on the ground, ice glistening on the trees, just dripping from the duned windows over the pond. And there, the fanciful old Victorian with its mirrored roof lines and the arched and porthole windows rising and spreading soft blue against the hard shell of sky. Its terraces and gorgeous portico herald the season. with their festoons of lights and greenery.
If I lay here,
She studied, as she often did, as she walked the shoveled paths. She loved the lines of it, the angles of it, which, with its subtle touches of pale yellow, creamy white, picked out in that soft, subtle blue. It had been as much home to her as her own growing up, often more so. She admitted as her own had run on her mother's cartoonous whims. Parker's parents had been warm, welcoming, loving, and, Mac thought now, steady. They'd given her a calm port in the storm of her own childhood. She'd grieved as much as her friend at their loss nearly 7 years before. Now the Brown estate was her home, her business, her life. And a good one on every level. What could be better than doing something you loved and doing it with the best friends you'd ever had? She went through the mudroom, hung up her outdoor gear, then circled around to peek into Laurel's domain. Her friend and partner stood on the step stool, meticulously adding silver calla lilies to the 5 tiers of a wedding cake. Each flower bloomed at the base of a gold arcuous leaf to glimmering elegant effect. That's a winner, McBain. Laurel's hand was steady as a surgeon's as she added the next lily. Her sunny hair was twisted at the back of her head into a messy knot that somehow suited the angular triangle of her face as she worked. Her eyes, bright as bluebells, held narrowed concentration. I'm so glad she went for the lily centerpiece instead of the bride and groom topper. It makes this design. Wait until we get to the ballroom and add it. Mac pulled out a camera. It's a good shot for the website, okay? Sure. Get any sleep? Didn't hit me until about 5, but I stayed down till noon. You? Down by 2:30, up at 7 to finish the groom's cake and desserts. And this. I'm so damn glad we have 2 weeks before the next wedding. She glanced over. Don't tell Parker I said that. She's up, I assume. She's been in here twice. She's probably been everywhere twice. I think I heard Emma come in. They may be up in the office by now. I'm heading up. Are you coming? 10 minutes. I'll be on time. On time is late in Parker's world. Matt grinned. I'll try to distract her. Just tell her some things can't be rushed and that the MOB's going to get So many compliments on this cake, she'll stay off our backs. That one could work. Max started out, winding through to check the entrance foyer and the massive drawing room where the ceremony itself would take place. Emmeline and her elves had already been at work, she noted, undressing from the last wedding, redressing for the new. Every bride had her own version, and this one wanted lots of gold and silver ribbon and swag, as opposed to the lavender and cream voile of New Year's Eve. The fire was set in the drawing room, and it would be lit before the guests began to arrive. White draped chairs, sparkling with silver bows, formed row after row. Emma had already dressed the mantle with gold candles in silver holders, and the bride's favorite white calla lilies massed in tall, thin glass vases. Max circled the room, considered angles, lighting, composition, and made more notes as she walked out and took the stairs to the third floor. As she expected, she found Parker in the conference room of their office, surrounded by her laptop, BlackBerry folders, cell phone, and headset. Her dense brown hair hung in a long tail, sleek and simple. It worked with the suit. A quiet dove gray that would blend in and complement the bride's colors. Parker missed no tricks. She didn't look up, but circled a finger in the air as she continued to work on the laptop. Knowing the signal, Mac crossed to the coffee counter and filled mugs for both of them. She sat, laid down her file, opened her own notebook. Parker sat back, smiled, and picked up the mug. It's going to be a good one. No doubt. Roads are clear, weather's good, the bride's up, had breakfast and a massage, the grooms had a workout and a swim, caterers are on schedule, all attendants are accounted for. She checked her watch. Where are Emma and Laurel? Laurel's putting the finishing touches on the cake, which is stupendous. I haven't seen Emma, but she started dressing the event areas. Pretty. I want some outdoor shots before and after. Don't keep the bride outside for too long before. We don't want her red-nosed and sniffling. You may have to keep the MOB off my back. Already noted. Emma rushed in, a Diet Coke in one hand, a file in the other. Tink's hungover and a no-show, so I'm one short. Let's keep this brief, okay? She dropped down at the table, her curling black hair bounced over the shoulders of her sweatshirt. The bride's suite and the drawing room are dressed Foyer and stairway nearly finished. The bouquets, corsages, and boutonnieres checked. We've started on the grand hall and the ballroom. I need to get back to that flower girl. White rose pomander, silver and gold ribbon. I have her halo, roses and baby's breath, ready for the hairdresser. It's adorable, Mac. I need some pictures of the arrangements if you can fit it in. If not, I'll get them. I'll take care of it. Thanks. The MOB? I'm on it, Parker said. I need to... Emma broke off as Laurel walked in. I'm not late, Laurel announced. Tink's a no-show, Parker told her. Emma's short. I can fill in. I'll need to set the centerpiece of the cake and arrange the desserts, but I've got time now. Let's go over the timetable. Wait. Emma lifted her can of Diet Coke. Toast first. Happy New Year to us. To 4 amazing, stupendous, and very hot women. Best pals ever. Also smart and kick-ass. Laurel raised her bottle of water. To pals and partners. To us. Friendship and brains in 4 parts. Mac added. And the sheer coolness of the whole we've made with vows. And to 2009. Parker lifted her coffee mug. The amazing, stupendous, hot, smart, kick-ass best pals are going to have their best year yet. Damn right, Mac clinked her mug to the rest. To wedding day. And now, then, now, and always. Then, now, and always, Parker repeated. And now, timetable. I am on the bride, Mac began from her arrival, with switch to the groom at his, candids during dressing, event posed as applies, formal portraits in and out. I'll get the shots of the cake, the arrangements now, do my setup, all family and wedding party shots separate prior to the ceremony. Post-ceremony, I should only need 45 minutes for the family shots, full wedding party and the bride and groom, floral dressing in the bride and groom suites, complete by 3, floral dressing in the foyer, parlor, staircase, grand hall, and ballroom by 5. Parker glanced at Emma. We'll be done. Videographer arrives at 5:30. Guest arrivals from 5:30 to 6. Wedding musicians, string quartet to begin at 5:40. The band will be set up in the ballroom by 6:30. MOG, attended by son, escorted at 5:50. MOB, escorted by son-in-law, directly after groom and groomsmen in place at 6. Parker read off the schedule. FOB, bride and party in place at 6. Descent and procession, ceremony, duration, 23 minutes. Recession, family moments, guest escorted to Grand Hall at 6:25. Bar opens, Laurel said, music past. food, 6:25 to 7:10. Photographs, announcement of family, wedding party, and the new Mr. and Mrs., 7:15. Dinner toasts, Emma continued. We've got it, Parks. I want to make sure we move to the ballroom and have the first dance by 8:15. Parker continued. The bride especially wants her grandmother there for the first dance, and after the father-daughter, mother-son dance, for her father and his mother to dance. She's 90 and may fade early. If we can have the cake cutting at 9:30, the grandmother should make that too. She's a sweetheart, Mac put in. I got some nice shots of her and Allison at the rehearsal. I've got it in my notes to get some of them today. Personally, I think she'll stay for the whole deal. I hope she does. Cake and desserts served while dancing continues. Bouquet toss at 10:15. Tossing bouquet is set, Emma added. Garter toss during dancing continues. Last dance at 10:50. Bubble blowing. Bride and groom depart. Event end at 11. Parker checked her watch again. Let's get it done, Emma. And Laurel nodded. Emma and Laurel need to change. Everyone remembered their headsets. Parker's phone vibrated, and she glanced at the readout. MOB again. 4th call this morning. Have fun with that, Max said, and escaped. She scooted room by room, staying out of the way of Emma and her crew as they swarmed over the house with flowers, ribbons, voile, and took shots of Laurel's cake. Emma's arrangements framed others in her head. It was a routine she never allowed to become routine. She knew once it became she'd miss shots, opportunities, bogged down on fresh angles and ideas, and whatever she felt herself dueling, she thought of a blue butterfly landing on a dandelion. The air smelled of roses and lilies and rang with voices and footfalls. Light steamed through the tall windows in lovely beams and shafts, and glittered on the gold and silver ribbons. Headset Mac. Parker rushed down the main staircase. The bride's arriving. As Parker hurried down to meet the bride, Mac jogged up. She swung out on the front terrace, ignoring the cold, as the white limo sliced down the drive. As it eased to a stop, she shifted her angle, set, and waited. Maid of honor, mother of the bride, move, just a little, she muttered. Allison stepped out. The bride wore jeans, Uggs, a battered suede jacket, and a bright red scarf. Mac zoomed in, changed stops. Hey, Allison. The bride looked up. Surprise! Turned to amused delight, and to Mac's pleasure, Allison threw up both arms, tossed back her head, and laughed. And there, Mac thought, as she caught the moment, was the beginning of the journey. Within 10 minutes, the bride's suite, once Parker's own bedroom, bustled with people and confusion. 2 hairdressers played their tools and talents, curling, straightening, styling, while others wielded paints and pots. Utterly feminine, Mac thought, as she moved through the room. Unobstructively. The scents, the motions, the sounds, the bride remembered. The bride remained the focus. No nerves on this one, Mac determined. Allison was confident, beaming, and currently chattering like a magpie. The MOB, however, was a different story. But you have such beautiful hair. Don't you think you should leave it down? At least some of it, maybe? An updo suits the headdress better. Relax, Mom. It's too warm in here. I think it's too warm in here. And Mandy should take a quick nap. She's going to act up. I just know it. She'll be fine. Allison glanced toward the flower girl. I really think... Ladies! Parker wheeled in a cart of champagne with a pretty fruit and cheese tray. The men are on their way, Allison. Your hair's gorgeous. Absolutely regal. She poured a flute, offered it to the bride. I really don't think she should drink before the ceremony. She barely ate today, and, oh, Mrs. McPherson, I'm so glad you're dressed and ready. You look fabulous. If I could just steal you for a few minutes, I'd love for you to take a look at the drawing room before the ceremony. We want to make sure it's perfect, don't we? I'll have her back in no time. Parker pushed champagne into the MOB's hand and steered her out of the room. Allison said, "Phew," and laughed. For the next hour, Max split herself between the bride's and groom's suites. Between perfume and tulle, cufflinks and cummerbunds, she eased back into the bride's domain, circled around the attendants as they dressed and helped one another dress, and found Allison alone standing in front of her wedding dress. It was all there, Mac thought, as she quietly framed the shot. The wonder, the joy, with just that tiny tug of sorrow. She snapped the image as Allison reached out to brush her fingers over the sparkle of the bodice. Decisive moment. Mac knew when everything the woman felt reflected on her face. Then it passed, and Allison glanced over. I didn't expect to feel this way. I'm so happy. I'm so in love with Rod, so ready to marry him. But there's this little clutch right here. She rubbed her fingers just above her heart. It's not nerves. Sadness, just a touch. One phase of your life ends today. You're allowed to be sad, to say goodbye. I know what you need. Wait here." A moment later, Mac led Allison's grandmother over, and once again stepped back. Youth and age, she thought, beginnings and endings, connections and consistency, and love. She snapped the embrace, and that wasn't it. But that wasn't it. She snapped the glitter of tears and still no. Then Allison lowered her forehead to her grandmother's, and even as her lips curved, a single tear slid down her cheek while the dress glowed and glittered behind them. Perfect. The blue butterfly. She took candids of the ritual while the bride dressed, then the formal portraits with exquisite natural light. As she'd expected, Allison was game to brave the cold on the terrace, and Mac ignored Parker's voice through the headset as she rushed to the groom's suite to repeat the process with Rod. She passed Parker in the hallway as she strode back to the bride. "I need the groom and party downstairs, Mac. We're running 2 minutes behind." "Oh my God," Mac said in mock horror, and ducked into the bride suite. "Guests are seated," Parker announced in her ear moments later. "Groom and groomsmen taking position. Emma, gather the bridal party." "On it." Mac slipped out to take her stand at the bottom of the stairs as Emma organized the bridesmaids. "Party ready? Cue the music." "Cutting music," Parker said. "Start the procession." The flower girl would clearly be fine without the nap, Mac decided as the child nearly danced her way down the staircase. She paused, like a vet at Laurel's seagull, and then continued at a dignified pace in her fairy dress, across the foyer into the enormous parlor and down the aisle formed by the chairs. The attendants followed, shimmering silver, and at last the maid of honor in gold. Mac coached to aim up as the bride and her father stood at the top of the stairs, holding hands. As the bride's music swelled, he lifted his daughter's head to his lips, then to his cheek. Even as she took the shot, Mac's eyes stung. Where was her own father? She wondered. Jamaica? Switzerland? Cairo? She pushed the thought and the ache that came with it aside and did her job. Using Emma's candlelight, she captured joy and tears, the memories, and stayed invisible and separate.